Hello everyone, Soberoni of G&A Reviews here with my much requested top 10 list of servants for 2020. As the name implies, this is going to be a top 10 list of the servants who I think you should be on the lookout for this year in FGONA, based on their rarity, but most importantly, their power. I'll be going into the pros and cons of each servant, as well as when they're expected to be released, so that you can get a good picture of who you want to roll for depending on your circumstances and who you should save for. So with all that said, let's get right into the list. Rounding out the top of our list of top 2020 servants is a servant I consider to be one of the most underrated in the game, Ivan the Terrible. Ivan is a 5-star rider who's going to be released alongside the Lost Belt 1 gacha in early April. What sets Ivan apart from most riders is that he is extremely high utility. He's able to remove his own debuffs, as well as provide the team with crit star generation, buster card resist down on enemies, and the ability to remove all buffs from all enemies. And that last one is of particular note because the ability to remove all buffs from every enemy is exceedingly rare and extremely valuable, especially in high difficulty content, which is abundant in the Lost Belt era. He provides utility that even most dedicated supports can't. But even on top of that, he's recently received a buff to his Noble Phantasm, which allows him to put out some decent damage in his own right. So he works very well as an offensive support hybrid servant, where he can provide damage to the team while also providing them with unique benefits like being able to remove buffs from enemies and weaken their resistance to buster damage. On the downside though, his banner is very close to another very prominent rider in 2020, that being Achilles, and while he does provide excellent utility and decent damage, he isn't by any means a hard carry. Don't expect him to do the job of an Ozymandias or Quetzalcoatl. He's there to be more of a supporting piece. I consider Ivan ideal for people who are in need of a strong buster support to run along servants like Merlin, Nightingale, and Shakespeare to support their main damage dealer, as he can provide benefits that those servants cannot. He's also perfect for running in the big boy meta alongside Zhang Yu and Darius. At number 9, we have a servant that I have a feeling most of you are looking forward to already anyway, Asagami Fujino. Fujino is a 4-star archer who's going to be releasing with the Kara no Kyokai rerun in mid-February. And Fujino's claim to fame in FGO is going to be that of the rarest servant ever. In fact, Fujino only has one raid up, and that's going to be her first one in February. Which means if you don't pull her then, you have no chance of getting her for at least another 2 years, if not longer. But aside from being exceedingly rare, Fujino is also just a good single target archer. She has a great mix of offense and defense alongside some very unique utility. For example, she has a good mini mana burst in her first skill, but it also allows her to ignore defense and apply sure hit so that she can hit through evade. She also has some decent tankiness in her third skill, which applies damage cut and applies guts to herself as well. And that skill has excellent synergy with certain supports like Mosh and Waver. This good mix of offense, tankiness, and utility makes her an excellent choice for challenge quests. She also has one of the most badass NP animations in the game. However, on the downside, her damage is subpar compared to most of the other single target archers, just due to her lack of an NP interlude. She's also difficult to use without the proper supports because of that. I think Fujino is ideal for people who are looking for a strong archer that's capable of tackling high difficulty challenge quests, and also ideal for people who have good taste. Who says welfares can't make the list? Coming in at number 8, we have Jeanne d'Arc Alter Summer. Jeanne d'Arc Alter is going to be a 4-star berserker releasing with the summer event in August. And although she is a welfare servant, don't overlook her power. I consider her to be the best welfare servant of 2020, and for good reason. Namely, that she is a free single target buster berserker that we get at NP5, which means she's going to be capable of some huge damage. It may be easy for us whales with our NP5 Kualters and Kintokis to overlook, but most players aren't going to have access to this type of nuke in their Chaldea, and she's absolutely going to revolutionize the game for a lot of free-to-play and new players. She has 2 excellent damage buffing skills along with Madness Enhancement EX. So even without much support, her Noble Phantasm is going to be leagues above what most other servants are capable of unless they're also NP5. And on top of that good damage, she also has good survivability for her class due to her first skill, which applies evade one time every turn for 3 turns, basically allowing her one free hit from an enemy every turn. So even without much offensive or defensive support, Jeanne d'Arc Alter is capable of being an excellent servant. But don't expect her to revolutionize the mechanics of the game. At the end of the day, she is just a giant beatstick, nothing more and nothing less. So if you need something other than great damage, look elsewhere. I think that everyone should grab Jeanne d'Arc Alter anyway because she is a free NP5 Berserker, but she's going to be especially great with those of you who need a servant capable of big burst damage and those of you who are free to play and may not have a strong Berserker. And of course, also great for those Chunies out there. For those of you that don't know, 2020 is going to be a great year for the Greeks, at least in FGO. Coming in at number 7, we have Chiron. He is a 4-star archer who's going to be released in late April during the Apocrypha event. Chiron often goes overlooked just due to the banner that he shares with a certain other Greek, but don't make that mistake because Chiron has a lot to offer in his own right. He is an excellent crit support, capable of giving your entire party a 50% buff to crit damage for 3 turns on a very short cooldown. He's also capable of providing crit stars on his own, and he has extra utility in the form of his Noble Phantasm, which removes defensive buffs from an enemy, making it good for leading off an NP chain if an enemy is stacking defense buffs or has evade or invincibility. When it comes to supporting crit teams, Chiron is one of the best that there is. The crit damage buff he provides is massive, and the extra stars are very good too. But what really puts him over the edge is his 3rd skill. Much like Helena's 3rd skill, it's a targetable multi-card buff. It buffs Art's Quick and Buster Card effectiveness for an ally by 30%. This skill, along with his Quick and Art's leaning deck, make Chiron versatile enough to fit into any kind of crit team. Whether it's an Arch crit team, a Quick crit team, or even a Buster crit team, Chiron can find his place, provide the stars, provide the buffs, and provide a little bit of extra utility. His only major weaknesses are his low damage output and his tendency to steal stars due to his archer class. But even so, I recommend them for anyone trying to build any kind of crit team, as he's an excellent support. He's also a horse in one of his sprites, so for those of you who are into that sort of thing, FGO has you covered this year. What, you thought there'd be just one Jeanne d'Arc on this list? Nope. Coming in at number 6, we have Vanilla Jeanne d'Arc Summer. Jeanne d'Arc is a 5-star archer who, much like her predecessor on this list, will be dropping with the Summer 3 event in early August. However, unlike her predecessor, Jeanne d'Arc Archer can fill many different roles. Most notably is her ability to NP loop for days. She has great natural NP gain, as well as a strong NP charge and a high tendency to crit since she's an archer. She also has an AoE Arts Noble Phantasm. All of this means that it's pretty easy for her to Noble Phantasm on back-to-back turns with not much setup, and that makes her without a doubt one of the best farming servants in the game. But she can do more than just farming. In addition to being an NP spammer, she also has a very high health pool and a skill that grants her invincibility for 2 hits on a low cooldown, making her very tanky as well. She also packs one of the best charismas in the game with Servant Cheer, which gives a 40% attack buffs to allies who have the good alignment, which includes a lot of playable servants in the game. So whether you need an efficient farming servant, a tank, or a general support, Jeanne d'Arc Archer can pretty much do it all. And she fits right at home into most arts teams since she is so self-sufficient. If there are any downsides to her, it's that unless she's NP looping, her damage is subpar, so you need to make sure that you have someone who can juice her NP gain. And she also has one of the worst 3rd Ascension arts in the game. However, I do highly recommend her for anyone trying to build an efficient farming strategy, whether it be for lottery events or just quick farming. She also works as a perfect tag for any H-site. Starting off the top 5, we have a servant who I'm sure most people are looking forward to this year, Summer BB. Summer BB is a 5-star Moon Cancer who is another summer servant, which means she's going to drop during the Summer 3 event in late August, and she's a unique servant to be sure. Her Her inclusion in the top 5 for me is a bit controversial because she is a bit RNG dependent and she operates in a very specific niche. However, that niche is insanely exploitable. She has what I consider to be the most unique skill in the game, which is Faceless Moon. It freezes your hand for 3 turns, locking in place all the command cards that you get. This can set up some absolutely insane strategies. You can set it up so that you have nothing but Buster Brave chains, or Arts chains, or you can even exploit certain servant gimmicks like Hokusai's defense down on Arts attacks. There's really no limit to what this skill can do, and it's really fun to work around. But even aside from her card locking ability, Summer BB also can shine as a farming servant. Her second skill is a 50% NP charge battery that also increases her Buster card effectiveness and her NP strength, which gives her just enough power to be a pretty decent farmer if you give her something like Golden Sumo or Aerial Drive. In particular, I use her as part of my EXP farming team. If you want, you can even set her up as a crit servant thanks to her strong self-modification rank EX ability, which is one of the better crit skills in the game. Her third skill also generates crit stars per turn, which makes her a decent crit support as well. As I mentioned though, her use is very niche and heavily dependent on RNG, so it's not always going to work out in your favor. I do consider her ideal as a crit support or for anyone who wants to experiment with fun and different team comps, as well as for anyone looking to replace Mosh as their #1 Kohai. Well, I've been hinting at him since this list started, so you knew he was coming. At number 4 we have Achilles. Achilles is a 5-star rider who's going to be releasing with the Apocrypha event in late April, and he makes a serious case for being the strongest rider in the game. Achilles possesses really strong NP gain and looping capabilities, especially in the right team, aka Skadi, which allows him to output some serious DPS despite having an AoE Noble Phantasm, not unlike Archer Jeanne d'Arc. He also has incredible defensive utility, possessing both a taunt and a very strong invincibility that acts as a mini protection from arrows. This strong mix of high DPS due to his Noble Phantasm gain, as well as his defensive capabilities and farming capabilities, makes him well suited for pretty much any role on the battlefield. So no matter what fight you're headed into, Achilles is an excellent option to bring along as your main rider. The only real con I can think of on Achilles is that he does need Skadi to reach his full potential. However, even without her, he's still a damn great servant, and I highly recommend him for anyone looking for a great farming servant or just a strong rider overall. He's also a quick servant that can absolutely carry you through anything the Lost Belt has to offer, and he makes a great best friend for Skadi. And topping off the peak of the top 3 servants is a servant that's actually out right now, Hokusai. Hokusai is a 5-star foreigner that you can actually roll for right now if you're watching this video early, as she's on the banner for the New Year's event, and I highly suggest you do so because she's an incredible art servant. I actually have a full detailed spotlight on Hokusai, which I'll link down below if you want a bigger, more in-depth look at her, but to summarize it, the reason why Hokusai is so incredibly strong is because of her third skill, which applies defense down to all of her arts cards, including her Noble Phantasm. This allows her to stack defense down on enemies to no end. She can easily decrease an enemy's defense by 60% or even 100% with certain setups. So naturally this is an incredibly exploitable skill because it's going to increase damage for your entire party by that much. On top of that, she also has the privilege of being the best foreigner in the game, pretty much bar none, which is already a strong and rare class as it is. Her NP gain is also pretty solid. She has good survivability and an NP charge, which allows her to NP pretty frequently, so she's solid for all phases of the game, whether it be farming, boss killing, or challenge quests. She can do it all, and I highly consider her to be one of the best art servants in the game, period. Her only real cons are the fact that she can be a bit over-reliant on her third skill's defense down effect, and her damage can be subpar if you're not making full use of the bonus damage effect on her Noble Phantasm. Still though, I highly recommend her for anyone building any sort of arts team, as well as any tentacle art enthusiast. So you may be asking yourself, if Hokusai is so strong, why is she just number 3? Well, that's because she comes out in a year where we have the number 2 servant, Shi Huangdi. Shi Huangdi is a 5-star ruler who drops in early December during the Lost Belt 3 banner. And the best way to describe him is Jeanne d'Arc ruler on steroids. Shi Huangdi is absolutely one of the most busted, broken, insane servants in the game. Just to go over his skills, he has the ability to decrease the NP charge of all enemies, as well as decrease their defense and inflict stun on them. He also has the abilities to increase his own attack, heal himself, remove all his debuffs, and has a 50% NP charge battery, and those are just his skills. His Noble Phantasm is somehow even more busted, as it applies invincibility to himself for 1 turn, as well as casts Taunt on him for 1 turn, while also increasing his attack by 50% and increasing his crit strength and crit star gather rate. It feels like Shi Huangdi has damn near every buff in the game. As a ruler class servant, he also takes reduced damage from most enemies as well. All of this makes him, in my opinion, the best defensive servant in the game with unparalleled utility. But thanks to his attack buffs and crit buffs, he's also capable of pulling out high DPS if he has a star generator. So what you're left with is a servant who's damn near immortal, but also capable of high damage output. Needless to say, he's also a monster in challenge quests and any kind of high difficulty content, as well as a great soloer. The only real con that he has is that if you're using him in a team, he may need a star generator to set him up for his crits. But other than that, he's completely broken. I highly recommend him for anyone looking for a servant that can tackle challenge quests, can do solo content, as well as anyone looking to set up a really strong stall team. And he of course also gets bonus points for being Lelouch. And coming in at number 1 for 2020 is, well, you know it, I know it, we all know it, Skadi. Skadi is a 5-star caster who's going to be released with the anniversary event, which should be sometime in July. If you don't know who Skadi is by now, you must be living under the biggest rock in Chaldea. She is the best quick support in the game, bar none. She's basically Merlin, but for quick servants. She packs an unbelievable 50% NP charge battery that's targetable, as well as a targetable quick mana burst. These 2 skills alone allow her to turn any quick servant into an overpowered NP spamming monster. She also trivializes most of the difficult content in the game, whether it be challenge quests or story chapters. That NP charge ability also makes farming a breeze and enables a whole subgenre of NP looping servants. And she also has some good defensive capabilities in her Noble Phantasm, which grants evade to the whole party. If I were to give any kind of mark against Skadi, it would be that she's better in quick battles than she is in longer battles, but given that her buffs are so powerful that she can reduce any battle to 3 turns, that hardly matters. I highly recommend that everyone roll for Skadi when she releases during the anniversary, especially since we'll be getting a whole bunch of Saint Courts to roll her with. But I specifically recommend her if you're building any sort of quick team, as she's almost essential. Plus, you get to have Skahak as a waifu without the downside of having to be a great warrior. And those are my top 10 servants of 2020. I hope you guys found that list helpful. If you did, please leave a like and consider subscribing so you can catch more of these videos as they come out. I'll also be doing a top 10 upcoming banners video as well, just like I did last year, so that you guys can save courts and know what to roll for. Also, let me know who your top 10 servants are in the comments down below. I'm curious to see where you guys rank them. And if you haven't already, do follow us on Twitter, follow us on Twitch, and join the party over on our Discord. And until next time, this is Soberoni, signing out. Have a happy new year, everyone. Later.